Robert and Mary Nielsen were the kind of couple people aspired to be. In the sleepy town of Woodbridge, Virginia, their pristine home with its sprawling lawn and vibrant flower beds was the quintessential embodiment of suburban success. Robert was a well-known real estate developer, his sharp business acumen fueling his rise to local prominence. Mary, a compassionate and dedicated elementary school teacher, was the heart of their family and a beloved figure in the community. To those who knew them, the Nielsens had everything: wealth, love, two beautiful children, and a life straight out of a glossy magazine. But on the night of June 20th, 2019, this picture-perfect life was shattered in a crime so gruesome and shocking that it left an entire town reeling. When the police responded to a neighbor's frantic 911 call the next morning, they had no idea they were about to step into one of the most horrific crime scenes Woodbridge had ever seen. Inside the Nielsen home, they found the lifeless bodies of Robert and Mary, their blood pooling across the pristine white carpet of their master bedroom. Robert had been beaten savagely, his skull crushed in with what investigators later determined to be a hammer. Mary had been stabbed repeatedly so viciously that the blade had broken off in her chest, its hilt left protruding grotesquely from her blood-soaked body. But the horror didn't end there. What investigators discovered next would send shockwaves through the community. The killer was none other than their 17-year-old son, Jake Nielsen. When Officer Amanda Hill arrived at the Nielsens' home, she noticed something unsettling immediately. The front door stood ajar, and there were no signs of life inside. The Nielsens' usual morning routine laughter from the kitchen, the sound of the TV was replaced by an oppressive, chilling silence. Officer Hill's heart raced as she approached the house, unsure of what she would find. Nothing, however, could have prepared her for what awaited inside. The scene was one of unspeakable carnage. Robert Nielsen, once a man of towering strength and charm, lay in a twisted, unnatural position by the bed. His skull was caved in from multiple blows, the weapon still missing. Blood had splattered across the walls, a sickening testament to the ferocity of the attack. Just a few feet away, Mary Nielsen's body was crumpled near the foot of the bed. She had been stabbed at least 27 times, each wound seemingly inflicted with growing rage. The bedroom, once a symbol of marital bliss, had become a slaughterhouse. Despite the overwhelming violence, there were no signs of forced entry, no indication of robbery. Nothing was missing, except perhaps the illusion of safety. The crime scene told a story of deep personal hatred, someone who knew the victims, someone who wanted them to suffer. As the police launched a full-scale investigation, Robert and Mary's friends and family were left grappling with disbelief. How could this happen? Who could have done this? Robert and Mary were well-liked, respected pillars of the community. There had been no public signs of trouble. But as investigators peeled back the layers of the Nielsens' seemingly perfect life, they found something darker lurking beneath the surface. Robert had been under immense pressure at work. His real estate business, though profitable, was in trouble. Behind the confident exterior, Robert was struggling to keep his empire afloat, caught in a web of debts and bad deals. His relationship with his business partner, Patrick Dunbar, had soured dramatically in recent months. Dunbar was erratic, known for his temper and shady dealings. The two had reportedly argued bitterly just days before the murders, leading detectives to suspect Dunbar might have sought revenge. But it wasn't just Robert's business life that was unraveling. Inside the Nielsen home, tensions were boiling over. Their eldest son, Jake, had long been a source of stress. Once a bright, popular teenager, Jake had spiraled into a life of delinquency, dropping out of school and becoming increasingly withdrawn. He had started associating with a group of troubled teens known for drug use, petty theft, and even violence. Mary had confided in a close friend that she no longer recognized her son. In one chilling conversation, she admitted, "Sometimes I'm afraid of him." Robert, too, had been growing increasingly frustrated with Jake's behavior, and their father-son relationship had turned volatile. Neighbors reported hearing shouting matches from the house late at night. One neighbor, who wished to remain anonymous, recalled hearing Robert yell, "If you don't straighten up, I'll kick you out for good," followed by the sound of glass breaking. Though no one suspected just how deep the Nielsen family's troubles ran, there were subtle signs that something was very, very wrong. As detectives delved deeper into Jake's life, a disturbing picture began to emerge. Jake had been harboring a growing resentment toward his parents, particularly his father. He felt stifled by Robert's strict rules, bitter over what he saw as impossible expectations. Friends from Jake's circle began to speak out, revealing that Jake had often talked about getting rid of his parents. What started as teenage bravado took on a more sinister tone in the weeks leading up to the murders. The real break in the case came when police found Jake's journal hidden under his bed. The pages were filled with angry, hate-fueled rants against his parents. In one entry, dated just days before the murders, Jake chillingly wrote, "I'm done being their punching bag. They don't know what's coming." Worse still, investigators discovered internet searches on Jake's laptop that made their blood run cold. How to kill parents and get away with it, quick ways to kill with a hammer, and how to make a murder look like a break-in. It became clear that Jake hadn't acted on impulse. This was premeditated. He had been planning his parents' murder for weeks. On the night of June 20th, 2019, everything came to a head. Jake waited until his parents went to bed. He knew his father always locked the doors before turning in, so there would be no easy escape for his victims. Jake grabbed the hammer from the garage's chosen weapon and a kitchen knife as a backup. In the dead of night, he entered their bedroom and struck his father first. Robert woke up, but it was too late. The first blow shattered his skull, and though he tried to fight back, Jake's frenzied attack overwhelmed him. Mary woke to the horror of her husband's murder, screaming for help. But Jake turned his attention to her next, wielding the kitchen knife with a terrifying lack of emotion. The autopsy would later reveal that Mary fought hard, defensive wounds, marking her arms and hands, but Jake's rage was unstoppable. Each stab was more violent than the last, the blade snapping under the sheer force of the attack. When the knife broke, Jake grabbed the broken hilt and continued to drive it into her body until she stopped moving. When he was done, Jake calmly washed his hands, hid the bloody shoes and knife, and left the house. He walked to a nearby convenience store, where he was caught on camera buying an energy drink and chatting with the clerk, as though nothing had happened. Initially, Jake feigned shock and grief when he returned home and discovered his parents' bodies the next morning. He tearfully called 911, playing the part of the devastated son perfectly. But investigators were suspicious. His story had inconsistencies, and his behavior during questioning seemed off too rehearsed, too emotionless. When police found the bloody sneakers in the garage, all doubt vanished. The tread marks on the shoes matched the prints left at the scene, and forensic analysis confirmed that the blood belonged to Robert and Mary. Confronted with the evidence, Jake's demeanor changed. He went from playing the grieving son to coldly confessing the details of the crime, almost as if he were proud of what he had done. "I had to do it," Jake told investigators during a chilling confession. "They were ruining my life. They had it coming." Jake's trial was a media sensation, drawing national attention. Reporters descended on Woodbridge, and the courtroom was packed daily with curious onlookers. The prosecution painted Jake as a cold, calculating killer, driven by a combination of entitlement, rage, and psychopathy. They highlighted the evidence of premeditation, including Jake's online searches and his journal entries, which laid bare his hatred for his parents. The defense, in contrast, tried to frame Jake as a mentally ill teenager who had been pushed to the brink by abusive parents. They claimed that Robert was a tyrant at home, that he had physically and emotionally abused Jake for years, pushing the boy to snap, but their arguments fell flat. Witnesses testified that while Robert was strict, there was no evidence of abuse. In fact, many testified to how much Robert and Mary loved their son, even as they struggled to deal with his behavioral problems. The jury didn't take long to reach a verdict: guilty of first-degree murder on all counts. Jake Nielsen was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. His emotionless reaction to the sentencing, just a slight shrug and a smirk, only deepened the public's horror. Woodbridge was never the same after the Nielsen murders. Their beautiful home, once a beacon of success, remained vacant, eventually falling into disrepair. For many, it was a constant reminder of the tragedy that had taken place behind closed doors. The neighbors who had once envied the Nielsens for their perfect lives were left grappling with the unsettling truth. No one truly knew what was happening inside that house. The case of Jake Nielsen became a grim reminder that darkness can grow in the most unexpected places. Many parents in the community began to question their own relationships with their children, wondering if they could ever see such a tragedy coming. The Nielsen murders serve as a cautionary tale about the importance of mental health awareness, of listening to our children's struggles, and of recognizing that even those closest to us may be harboring dangerous thoughts. The brutal murders of Robert and Mary Nielsen by their son Jake serve as a chilling reminder that the illusion of a perfect life can hide unfathomable darkness. Beneath the surface of a seemingly successful and happy family were festering resentments, mental health struggles, and unchecked anger that exploded into violence. The lesson from this nightmare is clear. We must look beyond the facade of normalcy and confront the emotional and psychological turmoil that can quietly build within a family. The most horrifying crimes don't always come from strangers. They can come from within the walls of our own homes. The Nielsen tragedy forces us to ask the uncomfortable question: how well do we really know the people we love?